this? What's it going to take to get it? They're like, oh, just bring us your highest and best price. And then, but no buyer wants to just like, wait, I don't want to pay like 50 grand more or 100 grand more or 10 grand more if I don't have to. Like, I want to get the property, but not overpay for it, right?
My name is Kevin McIntosh, and this is The Closing Table, where we talk to experts about their experience in real estate all across the country. Let's go. Welcome to the Closing Table Podcast. I'm your host, Kevin C. McIntosh. Joining us on this episode, representing the Hawaii market, we want to welcome real estate professional David Buck to the Closing Table. How are you, David?
Awesome, Kevin. Thanks for having me.
Man, thank you for being here. We appreciate you taking time out to accept our invitation, first and foremost. So I want to hear your perspective with real estate in the Hawaii market. But before we even get there, let's talk about you as a person. If you don't mind, David, tell us who you are outside of real estate.
Sure. I'm, I guess first and foremost, I'd like to be considered as a husband and a father. I have two beautiful daughters, all of which both myself and my wife were born and raised in Hawaii, were born in Hawaii, I should say. My wife spent some time on the mainland. Daughters were born in Hawaii. Love the ocean, love water sports. We love to travel. When we're not in Hawaii, we like to spend time up in the mountains for something a little bit of a contrast. Instead of warm and beautiful tropic weather, like to get up into the mountains for something a little bit different. Yeah.
That is very interesting. I never even thought about that. You're in paradise. You live in paradise. For people on the mainlands, we're looking at Hawaii like almost like heaven in some sort of sense. So you being there so long, you're probably used to everything. I never thought about the fact that a vacation for you would probably be cold weather. I never even thought about something like to go from sunny weather in the beach to somewhere else sunny weather in the beach. Like, is that really a vacation almost? Maybe a different culture?
It's funny. It's kind of like the grass is always greener. It's like we talked about before. The grass is always greener. So like I've, buyers that come out to Hawaii, they're snowbirds. And a common question, and maybe I'll get ahead of myself here, but you have that demographic where they want to say buy a condo, buy a property that they can use a couple weeks a year, Airbnb out when they're not there. And I'm like, I get it. Like I want to do the same thing, say in a winter destination. So
that is crazy.
Although, so it's funny because it's just you take things for granted, right? And that's I love to travel, but it's always just nice when you return home at Honolulu International Airport. You step off the plane, you got those nice trade winds flowing in your face, and hard to beat.
Man, I just imagine myself getting off the plane. I just imagine myself getting off. There's no better feeling than getting off a plane, going somewhere at your vacation, and you just start soaking it in. But I love that perspective you started off with already. I never even thought about that, right? So beautiful, beautiful. Let's talk about the business part, right?
Sure.
You're a real estate professional. You have a real estate business. Everyone runs their business different. So just take some time and describe your real estate business.
Sure. Right now, I'm the principal broker and owner of Harcourt's Island Real Estate, and I've now been in the business, for 23 years, going my 24th year. So I've earned these gray hairs. when I started in my 20s, it was kind of like that trust factor. No one really trusts you because you don't have enough experience. But now I'm just kind of letting it go because this is experience right here.
Wisdom.
Yeah. And so, 23 years in the business. We have a small operation. Our office is in Kahala, which is close to home. It's a kind of it's near Diamond Head, and it's kind of known for its the luxury homes around there. What's interesting about Kahala is the biggest sale that took place on the island was this past year for a single family home was a $15 million oceanfront home. And some people might think, listening to this from other parts of the country, wow, that's crazy. Whew. Well, keep in mind, when I was in high school, back in the late 80s, early 90s, homes on Kahala Avenue actually went north of $20 million. They're actually more expensive back then than they are today.
What? Are you serious? How?
what happened was our real estate market when I was in high school was all fueled by the Japanese boom, or we call and yeah, we call it the Japanese boom. You know, this isn't like a fair housing thing. It's just like a known thing where the yen
Okay.
was very strong, and
Hmm.
the whole Japanese had a fascination for Hawaii real estate, and they were just coming to town and buying up everything in sight. There are stories about guys driving around in limousines and just knocking on doors and offering people suitcases of cash. Now, a lot of them, the 90% of the neighborhoods on Oahu are higher today than they were then, but it's crazy. Like they all gravitated towards Kahala, and you saw homes all along Kahala Avenue trading in the north of $20 million back then. Yeah.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah.
Thank you for bringing that perspective. I talked to a few agents out there and none of them brought that up.
And you know,
That is interesting.
what's wild is back to the whole thing of wanting to go to a different place for a ski destination.
Hmm.
Where a lot of friends used to like to go to Canada or Whistler because of the exchange rate. Well, now a lot of the people in Hawaii like to travel to Japan to go skiing, which I found fascinating because when I was in high school, I was always scared to travel to Japan because they were saying everything because the exchange rate, everything was so expensive. Like it was like $10 to get a cup of coffee. Like, and this is back in the late '80s. So, but now things
Sheesh.
have really reversed. So those that do travel, someone just told me they get lift tickets for $50 or something like that. So it's amazing how things change over time. You know,
Yes.
especially when you factor in exchange rates. So right now, I'll get into later when we talk about the market, but that's a big demographic of our market. Our foreign buyers and those exchange rates, you know, play a difference.
I imagine so. I imagine so.
Yeah.
Very, very interesting. Okay, great information. So we already start talking about it a little bit, but let's go into detail now. You kind of already described your market. We know you're in Hawaii,
Mhm.
but I kind of let's mix. I want to mix these next two questions, and I want you to
Sure.
describe your market geographically. You went into it a little bit more. Just talk about it a little bit more, but then transition into the data, the economics. What do you have in regards to how the real estate is moving in your market?
Okay, so I'm licensed in the state of Hawaii.
Hmm.
However, my practice is pretty much on the island of Oahu, and from an MLS standpoint, that's the Honolulu Board of Realtors. And for those that don't know, the city and county of Honolulu is the entire island of Oahu. So that's kind of like my playground for work, and I service the entire island because you could get anywhere within an hour unless there's just crazy traffic, which we're finding a
Hmm.
little bit more these days. However, in a perfect world, I'd love to just sail around near our house in Diamond Head or Kohala, what have you. But at the end of the day, I'm selling properties, and I go as far west as Makaha. I've got a listing in escrow right now on the North Shore. I'm all over the place. I go where the business takes me. But as far as I'm sorry, what was the latter part of that question? What the
Oh,
economics?
just
Yeah, so
yeah. Any information? Yep. Data.
big factor about Hawaii, and the analogy I sometimes use, is maybe comparing to another island or like say a place like Manhattan. Like New York is always known for their
Okay.
crazy real estate prices, and traditionally our real estate prices are going to be on the higher end when comparing to a national average. Um, and part of that reason is 93% of the lands in Hawaii are zoned either agriculture or conservation. So they don't let you just build. Otherwise, we look like Hong Kong. So they're kind of restrictive on where you can build. What's considered urban zoning is only 7% of the lands. So a lot of
Hmm.
that is in Honolulu, which is kind of you do see it is kind of the big city, which I enjoy living on Oahu. I actually lived on Maui as a kid, and I love it. It's a beautiful island. I got family there, and however, when I go there to visit, I kind of get bored after a week. That's why I love Oahu. You kind of get the best of both worlds. You get a little bit of the city life plus the beauty of Hawaii.
Ooh, that sounds nice.
Yeah.
That sounds nice. So I would
Well,
imagine. Oh, go ahead, please, please.
another little secret, because oftentimes when buyers first come to Hawaii, they
Mhm.
do get sticker shock when they see our prices.
Oh, for sure.
Well, yeah.
For
So,
sure.
but one thing not everyone picks up on, and a lot of the local people might get mad at me saying this, is our property tax rate is probably one of the lowest in the country.
Yes.
So,
Yes,
so
I've
for
heard.
owner occupants, that property tax rate, if it's like your primary residence with a roof above your head, the property tax rate is 0.35 of 1%. So just to use round numbers, say at $1 million, that's $3,500 a year. So that's like a fraction of what it would be in California. In Texas, it's almost 10 times as much. However, we do have
Damn.
income tax. So that's what the trade-off is.
There you
Yeah,
go. There
yeah.
you
But
go.
I once had a client who's a physician relocating from Ohio. He had a $900,000 place there, and he's looking at a $1.4 million place on Oahu, and his payments would have been the same, and that delta was how much more he's paying in property taxes.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Who would have known? And he probably has to. Is his home in Hawaii or the property in Hawaii smaller than where he was in the mainlands? I would
Yes,
imagine,
it
right?
will be
Yeah.
smaller.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
Yep.
yeah.
For sure. Okay.
Yeah, and that's another
Nice.
challenge is people, say they're coming from a 6,000 square foot house and now they're looking at 1,500 to 2,000 square foot
1,500.
house. But I said, well, most of the time you're spending your time outdoors. You're not
Yeah.
inside all
I
the
would.
time.
Yeah. Yeah. I would imagine so. I mean, you have a place in Hawaii. It's paradise. And then, that transition, I should say, man, going from what 6,000 to 1,500
Yeah,
a square feet in space, it's like you have to do a lot of serious downsize, a lot of serious down. You got to leave a lot of stuff behind, and
absolutely.
that's the other thing to moving to the islands too. Is just that some people may not even be privy to the fact that some people may think, okay, I'll bring my couch, I'll bring my living room set, my bedroom set.
Yeah. Or
You might not have space for all of that, to be quite
what's
honest with you,
rare
unless you're.
rare too is like I get the people
Mm-hmm.
that I want a 3 car garage, and those it's amazing how rare they are. We have them. I previewed a house last week that had a 5 car garage, but it was a $6 million house. In general, just to find a 2 car garage, you're doing pretty good. We have a lot of older construction. We have homes with carports.
Mm-hmm.
And believe it or not, people just kind of look at me funny when they first find this out. But we have a lot of stuff that was built post World War II. It's we call it single wall construction, and even prior to the war. So it's literally tongue and groove redwood, and there's no like double wall. There's no insulation between the wall. There's no 2x4s. It's like tongue and groove redwood stuck together, and those are the exterior walls of the house. And yeah, but people ask, well, how do you? Well, we don't have to heat during the winter.
I was just going, man. Yeah, good point.
And
Good
although
point. Good
we
point.
you can use air conditioning for a bit, but that's one of the beautiful things about living in Hawaii is we'll get into the weather in a little bit, but we got those natural trade winds. It's kind of like our natural air conditioning that kind of keeps us cool. Not to say it won't get
Mm.
warm, but we never like the record highs are like going to be in the low 90s. Like we don't get
Oh,
into
that's
the
not
heat.
bad.
Yeah.
That's not bad. Man, I don't know why I was thinking hundreds out there. That's more Arizona,
Yeah.
Texas, kind of like, I guess. But
Yeah.
yeah, that's I can do that. I was just saying like mid 80s, perfect for me. Even lower, high 70s, lower 80s, that's perfect for me.
Yeah.
So it's not. So you're not experiencing that dry heat out there, is what you're saying?
No,
Like
it's
Vegas.
definitely a little more humid. It's going to be in that
Okay.
70, 80 percentile. We'll get up to the 90 percentile. However, it's like I said, it's those trade winds that they're kind of like our natural air conditioning.
Something that you mentioned earlier, I hate to go back, but it kind of stood out to me when you said you would be on one part of the island visiting family and you would be there for about a week, but then you would get bored and want to go back to
different island over on
Honolulu's.
Maui.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah.
So I'm just curious because I guess it's kind of naive in a sense, but I'm just thinking like I would think I would never get bored in Hawaii anywhere, right? Because it's just beautiful.
There's so much to do. I'm just what I'm getting at, and now that I'm a little bit older, it's not as much a necessity. But when I was younger, say 20s and 30s, it's just a little more of the nice restaurants, the dining experiences, the concerts that come to town. A lot of the entertainment that comes from the mainland doesn't necessarily go to the neighbor islands. So a lot of friends that live there, they're flying to Oahu to go to concerts. Another huge factor, sorry if I'm going off a tangent, regarding people relocating to Hawaii is healthcare. If they're shopping around, and baby boomers are a big demographic, and my mom just recently moved back to Oahu from Maui. Part of it was the line of fires, which you may have heard about in the news, but if you, not many people realize this, there's only one hospital on the island of Maui. So if something bad happens, you might be an hour or several hour drive to get to that one hospital. And then if something major happens, they're medevacing you to Oahu. I used to be a
Mm.
firefighter, and we got close to a dozen hospitals on Oahu. So when you're thinking about healthcare, Oahu is kind of the place to be. There are two hospitals on the Big Island. Kauai, I think there's just one with Wilcox. So it's also another factor when you're considering relocation.
Mm. Interesting. 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 Wow. One hospital on that whole island is a crazy. That seems very, very dangerous. Not I
Well,
don't know if
the
dangerous
irony
is the right
back to
word.
entertainment and nightlife and all that. The irony is a lot of the celebrities love the neighbor islands because they get that privacy and they're not seen as
Yeah,
much, and so
I would
a lot of
imagine.
celebrities will tend to gravitate towards Maui or Kauai and parts of the Big Island. We do have them on Oahu, however, they're a little more few and far between.
Okay. Okay. Interesting. All right. So I want to revisit this a part where you mentioned the fact that you spent your career as a firefighter before you actually became a real estate agent out there. So the transition between being a firefighter and a real estate agent, a lot of people would say there's no parallels, there's no correlation. But I imagine you would have took something from your previous career as a firefighter and applied it to your work as a real estate agent. Maybe even pride, service, and dedication, some of the values there. But can you talk about what you actually took from your career as a firefighter and brought it into your career as a real estate agent?
Sure, absolutely. And I don't mean to correct you, but I actually did both for 7, almost 8 years.
Oh,
So I got out of the fire
wow.
department late
Please.
'99.
Okay.
Shortly thereafter, I'm like, great, I got a steady paycheck. However, I'm like, I was still living at home in my 20s, and I'm like, how am I going to afford to get out of the house? So I got a steady paycheck. I'm like, that's great, but most of the firefighters, unfortunately, in Honolulu are underpaid, and at one point, my mortgage was actually higher. This is later after I started earning money. It was higher than my income was in the fire department. So every firefighter pretty much has a second job. And so my wife and I went to real estate school. I got my real estate license, and kind of, I don't want to say the rest is history, but I worked hard. It was always the fear of not having a steady paycheck. So I hung into
Mm-hmm.
the fire department for the benefits for nearly 7 years. After my second year in the business, I was already making more money in real estate than I was in the fire department. However, it's just that fear factor of not, or releasing the steady paycheck. Um, so yeah, the Honolulu Fire Department, I've got a lot of great friends that are still there. It is a great career, a lot of fun camaraderie, a lot of toys. I used to, drive a jet ski, fly in the helicopter. At the
Ooh.
station we were at in Hawaii Kai had a jet ski. We did a lot of water rescues. But yeah, they
Ah.
had a motto of pride, service, and dedication. And so, I instilled that while I was still in the department. I carry that forward. It's like, it's part of it's almost like the golden rule. It's like treat others how you want to be treated. And I always tell people, I've had some buyers I've worked with for north of 8 to 10 years before they even buy a property. And I always tell people,
Whoa.
I'm never like a high pressure salesman. I'm always like, I'm born and raised here. I'm gonna, be around for a while. So I want you to be happy with your decision. So I'm
Mm-hmm.
never pushy in the sales process. And then, when they're engaged and they're if they're into a deal and they're not feeling comfortable, I'm never pushy. I've had some clients that I hate to say it, but backed out of 3, 4 deals before they finally close on a property. I just had one reach out to me last night, had him under contract on a place so a little over a month ago. They did the home inspection. He saw a cockroach and freaked out and wanted
Oh.
to cancel. And I'm like, well, cockroaches are everywhere in Hawaii, and you just got to take care of your place. But it's just an empty place that was sitting empty, right? So lo and behold, I was no pressure. We canceled the deal. I got a call last night, and he's like, "I regret canceling that place. Let's put an offer in on again. I want to get it because it was still available." So,
Wow.
yeah.
Wow. Okay, hold on, David. You said cockroaches.
Yeah.
I was not expecting this. Cockroaches are common in Hawaii?
Yeah, on every seller's disclosure, every property I've lived in, I have not lived in a property where you haven't seen an ant or a cockroach. Yeah, yeah,
Whoa.
yeah. But it's
Whoa.
just like hygiene, right? It's like as long as you maintain your
For
place,
sure, for sure, for sure.
so
Yeah,
on
yeah,
our
yeah. I get it.
property, we have a vendor that we call up. They come out once a quarter and they spray, and it just we almost never see a cockroach. But
I
if you
get it. I
just
get
leave
it.
food out and you're just a slob, yeah, they're going to gravitate towards you. And
For
this particular
sure, for
property
sure.
just happened to be sitting empty, so they probably, the roach found its way in and died in there. Um,
Man.
we have centipedes, we have scorpions, we have rats. That's all the bad stuff. The good news, we don't have snakes.
Oh, well, that's good.
Yeah.
Well, okay, so now you made me think of something. Any wild or exotic animals or animals that are just walking around or around there that you probably wouldn't see in the mainlands?
Um, Probably the most wild one would be like a wild boar or a pig. That if you're in a little more rural area or up in the hillsides, we do have wild boar or wild pigs.
Oh,
But there's nothing on land that's gonna really kill you. There is in the ocean, but even then, they're kind of few and far between with, let's say, a tiger shark or something. But and back to
oh goodness.
Maui, we've got a population of nearly 1 million on Oahu, and it's really sad. It's like the majority of the shark attacks take place on Maui, and there's way less people there. And the concept or theory is maybe it's the whales that are breeding off the coast there. When I was a kid, I literally saw more sharks there than I have since the rest of my entire adult life. Like, and I've spent thousands of hours on the ocean on Oahu, maybe seen a shark once. When I was a kid in Maui, I'd see them all the time. Yeah, and it's just weird. Yeah, like you think, but it just goes to show you if they really wanted to go after people, they would, they'd be all
Oh no,
over.
for
They'd be
sure.
all over you,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
Yeah.
for
So
sure.
yeah, especially on
Whew,
Oahu with that many people. But yeah, the
whew.
sightings and shark attacks on Oahu, knock on wood, are kind of few and far between.
Oh my goodness. I would not know what to do if I saw a shark. I'm talking about even in an aquarium. I would like, yo, this big ferocious animal creature. And to see one in its own, like just in the ocean.
Yeah,
Oh my goodness. Like I can see if like I'm on land and I can see it from afar. I'd be scared. But if you are on water and
yeah,
you're looking and you're seeing it around, oh my goodness.
yeah.
Oh
And
my
there's a
goodness. I can
theory like
imagine.
if you're on a surfboard or a boogie board, like from down below, you look like a turtle. So that's why sometimes they'll launch at you. But yeah, once again, if that was their intention, they'd have their day all day long
Of course.
because yeah,
Of course. It's their
more of a
home.
fluke.
I get
Yeah,
it. Yeah,
yeah,
for sure, for sure.
yeah.
Okay, so you started off by telling me that your office, your brokerage, is the only establishment offering non-distressed auctions with no buyer's premium. Now,
Sure.
when you said that, I said, "Oh, okay, this seems like a great benefit for buyers," but I have no idea exactly what that is. So, can you explain what a non-distressed auction with no buyer's premium is, and how that is different from a traditional auction, if it is at all?
Sure. Okay. So I had a little bit experience in auction with my previous brokerage,
Hmm.
and some brokerages on Oahu or Hawaii, they'll pull in like a third party auction company. Say it's a property that's challenging to sell. Oftentimes it's on the high end. There's one, without mentioning any names. Brokers will team up with this particular company, and they'll come in and market your property as an auction. And so basically, it these are non-distressed auctions first off. So people sometimes when they feel hear the term auction, they think it's like a bank-owned property or foreclosure or what have you. But these are luxury properties. The ones we're doing, they're not all luxury properties. I got one I'm closing on tomorrow. It's just like more of a two-bedroom, two-bathroom, around $500,000 in town. But the
Mm.
process works well. Harcourts, which I've got the franchise with in Hawaii, they've been doing auctions since 1888. If you ever travel to New Zealand or Australia, most all their properties are sold by auction. So it's just a
Mm.
different concept or a different way of selling. And what I love about it's a lot more transparent process. It removes a lot of the games that we have in the industry, like you can actually see what offers are, especially like the market that we just went through when there's like bidding wars and buyers really want a property and they call up and, say I've been on both sides. So I represent a buyer and I call up the listing agent. I'm like, my client really wants this. What's it going to take to get it? They're like, oh, just bring us your highest and best price. And then, but no buyer wants to just like, wait, I don't want to pay like 50 grand more or 100 grand more or 10 grand more if I don't have to. Like, I want to know, I want to get the property, but not overpay for it, right?
Correct.
That's what's great about the auction process is you can actually see what the bids are, and to add to that transparency, all the things that you normally do. I'm not sure what state you're in, but Michigan. Are you an escrow state, or you guys use attorneys?
I want to say escrow. I'm not 100%.
Yeah.
I believe we are an escrow state for sure.
Okay, so
actually,
we are an escrow state, and we use the term escrow a lot. So escrow is basically once you have a deal accepted, then that process starts. There's a meeting of the minds, and then there's a lot of due diligence, right? The buyer does a home inspection, then they review the seller's disclosures, and there's a condo doc, they're going to review condo docs. If it's a single family home, they're going to want a copy of the survey. They got to review the title report. All those documents you normally get during escrow, which will typically take between 30 and 45 days. We provide all that documentation up front. So by the time the property goes to market and gets listed, it's like, here you go, Mr. and Mrs. Buyer. Here's a copy of the home inspection. Here's a copy of the title report. Here's a copy of the termite inspection. Here's the seller's disclosure. Here's the condo docs. Everything you normally do during discovery,
right.
You're getting up front. So there's nothing being hid. And what sellers like about it is it's not an opportunity for a buyer to renegotiate the price. Because sometimes, say, a buyer puts in an offer and they come to an agreement, and then they're like, well, I didn't know that door didn't work. I didn't know there was a leak in that bathroom. And then they start nickeling and diming the seller, right?
Yeah.
And that's as realtors, that's our job is, it's all negotiation, but it can be very stressful, and it's, so that's what it removes some of those games. Also, back to that scenario I was telling you about, like what to offer on a traditional sale. There are a lot of games that happen in this business. It's like I've written offers with clients, and then say the buyer doesn't get the property, and then later we find out, wait, it just sold for what we offered. How come they didn't go with our offer? And then you start to wonder, we're like, oh, did like sometimes like realtors favor other realtors, or like someone knew someone, or it was so and so's cousin, because even though there's a million people on our island, there's a lot of relationships, right?
Gotcha.
So it kind of removes some of those games. It's like, at an auction, it's the highest and best price, and so that's what the seller goes for. Yeah,
that is interesting.
Yeah,
so,
and I'm sorry. Yeah, so please. That's the non-distress price. Back to the no buyer's premium. The other, vendor that I mentioned, that company, that third party comes in. So say a seller pays a commission, and oftentimes it's going to go to their broker as well as the buyer's broker. The auction company comes in and charges an additional fee. It's called a buyer's premium. And oftentimes it's like 10%, and some are even as high as 12%. So say you have a winning bid on a property, it's $1 million, just for round numbers. Okay. The buyer's then got to write a check for $1.1 million. And then so the seller doesn't net as much money, because $100,000 is going to this auction company. And then the buyer doesn't get as good deal. It creates this artificial spread, because the seller's already paying, commissions, and then there's this auction company that's going to take this buyer's premium off the top. Yeah. So it creates this artificial spread, and the seller doesn't net as much money, and the buyer is not getting as good a deal. So at Harcourt's auctions, we're not trying to reinvent the wheel. They've been doing it since, like I said, the 1800s. They just charge an extra 0.5% on the commission. So there's no additional cost to the buyer buying the property.
Wow.
Yeah.
And that seems like a super great deal right there. With that being said, I'm so glad that you touched on a lot, and you pretty much answered a lot of my questions already. Because I was gonna go in and say, well, yeah, what if you have two bids that are very, very similar, if not the exact same, especially if you're just going off money. I know with the traditional transaction, there's other contingencies in there that may sway the seller, into, actually going with that offer. So in these situations, it's no contingency. So it's basically sold as is.
And then there's emotions too. Like I've had sellers that I've represented over the years where like they didn't take the highest offer. They're like, They like the story of the buyer because they were first time home buyers, and the other was an investor, and they might be flipping the property. Like, you do get some of those emotions that come into play, but nowadays we're encouraged not to write those emotional letters because of fair housing and stuff, and someone might pick that person because of their demographic. So what it does is it removes all of that from the game, and so seller can make an informed decision to go with the price that's best for them.
Okay, good. So ultimately, it is sold as is with the inspection that was already done. You couldn't get another inspection if you wanted to or anything, correct?
You could, but it'd be during the period prior to auction. So typically, when we would launch an auction, say we'd launch an MLS with an auction date, say like a month out. So that's when all the buyers come to look at the property. And then they're like, hey, great, I love it, but I don't trust your inspection. I want to get my own inspector. And they're like,
okay, yep.
I'm like, absolutely, have them come in, but it's going to be on their dime, right? So like,
For sure.
like if you want to have an inspector come and look at it now, so you feel comfortable, because by the time we hit the auction block, there's no time to like renegotiate the price.
Good point. So yeah, the inspection's already. So if they choose to go the other way, where let me find out, let me get an inspector, they have to pay for that. But if they go directly through the auction way, inspection's paid for, the appraisal's paid for.
Yeah, that's actually another little bonus you brought up, is because typically the buyer would pay for the home inspection. Now in this process, the seller's paying for the home inspection, which some sellers are like, wait, why should I pay for that? Normally the buyer pays for that, but I'm like, hey, you have the peace of mind that your property is going to be sold and they're not going to nickel and dime you because you're not hiding anything.
Right. Oh, wow. Yeah, that makes that whole process a lot more interesting. I wish it would be more welcoming for us to do that more traditionally in other in the mainlands, I guess. But
So
I don't know the details of it. So
so the auctioneer that runs Harcourt's Auctions, Ben Brady, he's based in Southern California, Newport Beach, but he's an Aussie. I call him a kid. He's in his early 30s now, but he's already sold like $6 billion worth of real estate. He's been doing this since he's like 18 years old in Australia. So Harcourt's Auctions is not just we're doing them in Hawaii, but they're really big in Southern California. They've been doing them now in the Bay Area of California. They're doing some in New York City. So in office or markets where there's a brick and mortar Harcourt's office, say like ours, they're running it through the office, but now they're starting to do them in other markets that they're not in. So like they've done some in Manhattan. I think they did like a villa in Italy. They've done them all over the country, up in British Columbia too, in Canada. And so, and what's really fascinating too, just outside of the real estate industry, to just kind of wrap your head around it. My wife and I watched this documentary on Netflix a little while ago. It's called the Lost Leonardo. Is about this Da Vinci painting, and how people thought they weren't going to get that much money for it. And it's just a story of how the auction process worked and the amount that they got. Without spoiling it, it is a wild story. Okay. But it makes you wonder why, when banks own property, when you have a fine piece of art or a collectible car or whatever, they'll typically go to market as an auction, because that way they feel like they're it's what the market will bear.
I see it now. I see what you're saying.
Okay.
So you let them determine the price.
Yeah, and one other thing I'll bring up from a seller standpoint, there, like I don't know if you ever spent any time on eBay, but from that concept, there is always a reserve price. So say if a seller has an apprehension, like, I don't want to sell my house because what if the highest price is this, and like I'm gonna have to be forced to sell my house. I got nowhere to go. I'm like, they always have a reserve price. So if we don't hit that price, they're not obligated to sell.
Wow. Okay, that's a safety net. There's a safety net for the seller type thing. Okay. Last question on that.
And that's confidential, kept between the auctioneer and us.
Okay. My last question with that. So with the auction process, it seems like there will be a listing agent that will pretty much set up that entire. That's what you would do. You will set up that entire auction. Correct. So with the buyer, is there an agent for the buyer? Is that necessary?
Well, we offer on all the auctions we've done. We've been offering compensation to the buyer's agent because we want them to feel comfortable with the process as well. So, but a lot of the work on our end is educating the buyer's agents about the process. Because what we don't want them to do is say, you don't want to buy this. They always think that like there's a catch, right? And
Right.
so our job is to educate the buyer's agents and share with them why this is good, because they're getting all this up front, and they're also going to be able to see what the bids are. If it was just a traditionally listed property that was priced well, because that's how
Right.
things sell. If they're priced well,
Mm-hmm.
there's going to get a lot of eyeballs on it, a lot of offers, but then it becomes a poker game. You don't know what to offer. At least
Yes.
if you sign up and register to bid for the auction, you could see what the offers are. And this is one sign of success in our market. The first two auctions we did, the buyers were actually realtors. So it's
Wow.
like they
Okay.
got the concept. Yeah,
Right. That's what I
yeah,
was saying. So,
yeah,
oh wow. Okay.
yeah.
Wow.
Not
Interesting
with
how
our
that
company,
works.
with another company. Yeah,
Right,
yeah,
right. That's interesting how that works. And I like that it's just offering a different approach to purchasing a home. Not
yeah,
everybody wants to go through that traditional route. It's not even for everyone. So to
yeah.
have that option and
It-
to have those different features and benefits to it makes sense to me personally.
Yeah, it's an accelerated process, because if not
Mm.
every homeowner wants to be on the market for 3, 4, 5 months, 6 months.
Yep. That's
So
another
you
good point.
you can get a real quick bearing on what the market will bear, because as long as I've said earlier, it's north of 23 years now in the business, and I'm not perfect. I can't. If you tell me what that house will sell for, I could make a pretty good educated guess, but it's what the market
Mhm.
will bear.
Correct.
Sometimes you see a place like, wow, that place is going to sell fast, and it sits. And other times, like, oh, they're smoking crack. They're asking that price. They're never going to get that, and then it sells. So that like that's what the market is. It's like seeing what the market will bear. And on a traditional sale, yeah, you could do your educated best to come up with an asking price, but this is a streamlined process to get it to what's considered market in a quicker fashion.
Nice,
Yeah,
nice,
yeah,
beautiful. Okay, cool, man. I love all that information regarding the auction. It's definitely insightful and it provides people with other options to seek if they are looking for home ownership or looking to sell, possibly.
yeah.
So, you said that you are second generation Hawaiian in your family.
Hmm.
You've been there, so you've probably been around the real estate business for a while too, because you said your father or one of your parents were in real estate. Is that
Yeah,
correct?
my dad was licensed since sometime in the early '80s, but he was in commercial real estate. And so, when
Mm.
I first got licensed, I mentioned earlier, I was in the fire department. And a lot of
Hmm.
the commercial brokers work kind of more banker's hours. And so I didn't have that
Oh,
option.
that
So
makes
I
sense.
had to have more of a flexible schedule. So I got in the residential arena. And, that's my forte. That's what I've been doing all these years. However, my dad, it's funny, years ago, he got a little burnt out on the commercial side. So he works for me now. He hangs his license with us.
Okay.
And, yeah, and he covers me when I can't be in more places than one at one time. Yeah,
That must be a great feeling, man, to work with
yeah,
your father, and after all the game he probably gave you, now you kind of working together and sharing it. That I would love to do that with my dad. That sounds beautiful, man. I mean, but with that being said, my question behind that is, I
yeah,
know you soaked up a lot of information from him, even though he was doing commercial real estate. There's probably some things that you could still learn, even on the residential side. But my question is, ultimately, have you been in a situation where you helped another maybe second, third generation Hawaiian actually find their first home on the island or any of the islands? And can you talk about the process, the feeling that they have with home ownership on their home island?
oh yeah, and I'm working one with right now. Yeah, he's just cleaning some things up with his credit right now. But yeah, having been in the fire department, I've got, like, I don't have Hawaiian blood. I'm born in Hawaii, but I've got cousins that are Hawaiian that they're very into.
Mm,
However, yeah, I've helped tons of Hawaiian people, like uh, Keikio, like people that are born in Hawaii, as well as people that are true Kanaka Maoli with Hawaiian blood that are
yes.
from Hawaii, and whether it be in the fire department or outside of that. Yeah, absolutely, it's a blessing. And One benefit not everyone's aware of, we do have something that's called Hawaiian homelands, and you have to
Mm-hmm.
have Hawaiian blood in order to own those properties.
Mm-hmm.
Like I'm not eligible because I don't have Hawaiian blood, but there are designated lands across the state, not just Oahu, um, where they're like 99-year leases. It's one of the best deals going. You can buy one
Sheesh.
of those properties, and they're available on the open market for resale. It is leased land, so you don't own the land beneath, say, the home. However, you can transact on an open market. So if one person of Hawaiian ancestry um, wants to sell their home, their buyer pool will be limited to other people with Hawaiian ancestry. Yeah, and I've helped
Mm.
facilitate, those transactions. I'm doing one possibly coming up in Waimanalo soon too as well.
Right. And I like to focus on that because I am a little bit privy to the situation of, first of all, we have limited housing here in the mainlands.
Hmm.
So I only imagine it's the same situation on the islands, right? But then you have native Hawaiians who have been there, maybe live with their mother or father for X amount of years. Now they want to own a home in
Yeah,
Hawaii, but throughout their years, they've seen the housing prices rise to
yeah.
a point where it may be unaffordable.
And that's
So
that's the
I
thing. We have a lot of multi
mhm.
generational living, and you see people back to the parking thing. 3-car garages, a lot of 2-car garages or carports get converted to another living space, or
Well, oh wow.
yeah.
Oh
There's a
wow.
lot of things in legislation right now trying to open things up. Where they're allowing ADUs, to be built on certain lots that have certain sizes, and there's a push to make a lot more affordable housing. But
Mhm.
yeah, once again, it's a supply and demand thing, and it's just a lot more people want to be there than want to get out of Hawaii.
Okay.
So that's what's causing the pricing. Yeah.
Just for clarification, ADU, additional dwelling unit?
Yes.
Gotcha.
Or
Just want to make
accessory
sure.
dwelling unit. Yeah, depending on how you
Okay.
use the acronym. Yeah, but yeah, I think they're limited to about 800 square feet. But that's in a lot of places that's like a 2-bedroom, 2-bath condo. Um,
Oof.
so 800 square feet. It's not huge, but it's like, yeah, it's something. Yeah,
Yeah, no, it's definitely something. It's
yeah,
definitely something
yeah,
that you own too.
yeah.
David, if you don't mind, man, I like to get inspired or motivated from my guests through this question. So I just want to see if there's a movie, a book, quote, maybe even philosophy that you live by that kind of shaped your life personally and or professionally that you could share with us.
Okay. Yeah. So as I mentioned, I was in the fire department prior. I was looking for something else to do. So many firefighters clock in and clock out to another job, but I wanted something with a little more freedom. And my wife and I were dating at the time, and it was an afternoon, and she's like, "Come in here, watch this. Like this guy's gonna be on Oprah." I'm like, "Oh, great." Lo and behold, I'll try to fast forward and not make this long, but her
No,
guest
no.
was Robert Kiyosaki. I'm not sure if you heard of him, but he wrote the
Yes.
the book Rich Dad Poor Dad. And I
Mm-hmm.
was still
Mm-hmm.
kind of like, why am I going to watch this? And then I watched him on stage, and the example he used was actually a firefighter that had another job and started a small business. He didn't become a realtor, but he started a small business. So he always encourages
Mm-hmm.
someone to start a small business or be a little more entrepreneurial, to not always just be, an employee. Um, there's a lot of great philosophies, but that was the first book I read, was his Rich Dad Poor Dad, and then Cash Flow Quadrant, and several others after that. Still listen to his
Mm-hmm.
podcasts, and I'm just blessed that I actually have met him multiple times. He's originally from
Oh.
Hawaii.
Oh.
He lives in Arizona now, but yeah, he grew up on the Big Island in Hilo, and
I think I did hear about
yeah,
that. Yeah.
his brother and my dad actually worked together at the time, and yeah, he's really really nice guy. It just he gets you thinking different,
Correct.
and it's funny.
Correct.
Literally, I've got a daughter that's turning 18 soon, and it's I wasn't taught money concepts growing up. We all go to
Mm-hmm.
school
Mm-hmm.
and get a good job, and get all that kind of stuff, get good grades, get a good job, but it's just like I had no clue what I want to do well into my 20s, and so
Correct.
I just had this conversation with my wife the other day. I'm gonna, give this book to my daughter for her birthday next month, and just start having that conversation with her.
Yes.
Yeah,
Oh man, man, I can only applaud you. As a father myself, I know. Trust me, like we are not taught these things. We are not talking about finances and money at the dinner table,
yeah,
which is something that needs to be discussed. That knowledge needs to be passed. It needs to be learned and passed through. You
yeah,
you what did they say? I forgot the saying now. My mind draws a blank, but you teach what was taught. There you go.
Yeah.
You teach what was taught. It's your responsibility, especially to your seeds, man.
Yeah.
So Rich Dad Poor Dad, I love that book too. I go back and listen to it or read it every now and then just to get refreshed on some of the methods and strategies and just the practices that he mentioned, because like you said, it has you think completely different about
Absolutely.
finances, economics, and everything, man. So well said, David.
Absolutely.
Perfect place to land the plane, man. At this point, if you have any last words and or want to tell people how to reach out to you, the floor is yours.
Oh, well, thank you so much for this opportunity. Some of my social stuff is at Diamond Head Dave. My website's HawaiiHomeListings.com. And if you're interested in seeing what's going on in the market, I didn't know we didn't get into market stats, but I do put out a newsletter called Dispatches at Diamond Head. I put out quarterly, and, I do blog, and, I've got a little YouTube channel going. Yeah.
Nice. Go ahead and check it out, please. We'll try to get that in that link also in the description, I should say. Thank you again, David. We appreciate it. For our YouTube audience watching right now, if you got to this point in the video, do us both a favor, hit the like button, share the content, and subscribe to our channel. And if you are listening on Apple, Spotify, or any other podcast platform, please do the same. Give us a like, give us a 5-star rating, and also subscribe for our latest content. And David, I'd also like to leave a question for our audience to have their brains rolling, just thinking a little bit. So for my audience, would you ever buy or sell a property through a non-distressed auction with no buyer's premium? If so, why? And if not, also tell us why. Don't tell us now, though. Leave it in the comments below. Besides that, I'll talk to you next time.